A wave of drone strikes has raised fresh questions over Iran's shadow warfare strategy against U.S. allies. Analysts say Tehran may be testing U.S. resolve, as renewed drone activity rattles multiple Gulf states once again. Iran-linked drones were reported near Kuwaiti vital sites, intensifying fears of escalation despite ceasefire claims. Iran has denied all accusations, even as officials and observers point to continued proxy activity across the region. Kuwait's National Guard sites and a Saudi oil pipeline were reported hit, amid accusations that Iran is playing both sides of the conflict. Kuwait has accused Iran and its proxies of launching drone attacks despite an ongoing 2-week ceasefire. The Kuwaiti Foreign Ministry said drones targeted vital facilities on the night of April 9, according to CUNA. In its statement, Kuwait warned that such attacks are undermining regional and international efforts to restore peace. The development has raised fresh tensions ahead of planned U.S. Iran talks in Islamabad on April 11, according to the Times of Israel. Meanwhile, Bahrain also said it has been dealing with waves of Iranian attacks launched over recent weeks. Authorities there said more than 100 projectiles were intercepted, although no fresh strikes were reported overnight. The United Arab Emirates, on the other hand, reported a rare period of calm, saying it detected no incoming missiles during the ceasefire. Saudi Arabia acknowledged that a recent attack had damaged its critical east-west oil pipeline infrastructure. The pipeline plays a key role in transporting oil to the Red Sea while bypassing the strategically sensitive Strait of Hormuz. Officials said the strike reflected ongoing pressure on vital regional energy routes amid the wider conflict situation. Analysts described such attacks as part of Tehran's broader pressure campaign against the United States and its allies. They added that the objective appeared aimed at forcing a halt to fighting involving Israel and Hezbollah across the region. Iran's IRGC denied any involvement, suggesting instead that the United States or Israel could be responsible for the incident. IRGC's statement read, and I quote, "If these reports published by the media are true, without a doubt it is the work of the Zionist enemy or America," unquote. However, analysts say Iran could still act through regional militias during sensitive negotiations. This comes as the U.S. said on April 8 that Iran can no longer distribute weapons to its proxy groups in the Middle East.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see all of you here today. With respect to the 2-week ceasefire announced by President Trump last night, this is a victory for the United States of America that the President and our incredible military made happen. Iran's ability to fund and support its terrorist proxies has been greatly reduced. At this point, Iran can no longer distribute weapons to its proxies in the region. And most importantly, Iran will not be able to acquire nuclear weapons. The president's maximum pressure and the leverage created by the success of Operation Epic Fury led to the Iranian regime asking for and ultimately agreeing to a ceasefire proposal with the United States. Iran could no longer tolerate being bombed or taking the gamble of what was to come following President Trump's 8 p.m. deadline last night. Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz, and as the president said, we have received a proposal from the Iranians that has been determined to be a workable basis on which to negotiate. The Iranians originally put forward a 10-point plan that was fundamentally unserious, unacceptable, and completely discarded. It was literally thrown in the garbage by President Trump and his negotiating team. Many outlets in this room have falsely reported on that plan as being acceptable to the United States, and that is false. With the president's deadline fast approaching and the United States military completely decimating Iran with each passing hour, the regime acknowledged reality to the negotiating team. They put forward a more reasonable and entirely different and condensed plan to the president and his team. President Trump and the team determined the new modified plan was a workable basis on which to negotiate and to align it with our own 15-point proposal. The president's red lines, namely the end of Iranian enrichment in Iran, have not changed. And the idea that President Trump would ever accept an Iranian wish list as a deal is completely absurd. The president will only make a deal that serves in the best interests of the United States of America, and he as a negotiating team will focus on this effort over the next 2 weeks, so long as the Strait of Hormuz remains open with no limitations or delays.
Thank you, Caroline. Iranian state media is saying that Iran has now closed off the Strait of Hormuz today in response to Israeli attacks on Lebanon. What's the White House response to that? And you just listed many military successes. I understand that. But strategically, how is the administration arguing that Iran does not have more economic leverage than it did before the start of the war?
Sure. Well, with respect to the first reporting out of Iranian state media, the president was made aware of those reports before I came to the podium. That is completely unacceptable. And again, this is a case of what they're saying publicly is different privately. We have seen an uptick of traffic in the Strait today, and I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly and safely. That is his expectation. It has been relayed to him privately that is what's taking place, and these reports publicly are false. Well, I understand the questions about the president's rhetoric, but what the president cares most about is results. And in fact, his very tough rhetoric and his tough negotiating style is what has led to the result that you are all witnessing today. Iran publicly acknowledging last night that they have agreed or that they wanted this ceasefire with the United States because they no longer could tolerate being bombed by our very powerful and lethal military, and that they have committed to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which the president will hold them accountable for, and it's something the administration is closely monitoring in real time.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.